Hey everyone, it's Archetypes, and today I'm talking about Night Stretcher, which is definitely a powerful card. And in fact, I think it might be the most powerful card in the standard format in the Pokemon TCG right now. There are definitely a few choices for this card, and it's clearly in that, high, like that staple tier, right? It sees a lot of play if we look at it. Looking at, for example, the most recent regional tournament at the time of recording this, it's in the first, second, third, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and then so on. Dax here, looking at the fourth place list, it's not in it, but we see what. Okay, apparently this is pre-rotation as well. I forgot about that. So in fact, it would probably be in a deck like that now because we lost Super Rod as well. So the card got better with rotation, which it was very good before rotation as well. But Night Stretcher is a very simple card in terms of what it does. It just got one line here, and it is, of course, as well also an item. So you can play any amount of items during your turn, and you either put a basic Pokemon or a basic energy from your skill pile into your hand. Sorry, you put a Pokemon or a basic energy. There we go. I should, in fact, read the card correctly there. Even if it just got a basic Pokemon, still be very good. But it gets any Pokemon or any basic energy, which is like most of the energies, right? So it gets a lot of things, right? If we look at a deck, right, let's look at, for example, just 5 decks online here. I guess we'll combine archetypes here. So we look at Dragapult, and it can get you, all your basic energies here. You have 3 different types of basic energies, and you have a bunch of different Pokemon lines, and of course there's like Pokemon, a different Pokemon within those lines as well for like, for example, the Dragapult line, and that's really good. We look at Mega Lucario here, because with Dragon Ball, a good thing is that it can get different types of basic energy and a wide variety of different Pokemon. With the Mega Lucario deck here, we see a smaller variety of different Pokemon and energies as well. We just see, of course, a basic fighting energy here, but it can get back, if you're playing this stack, I would probably play Night Stretcher in it. You get back basic fighting energy to, of course, be like reattached, but it could also be used to get it back to Lunar Cycle it again as well, right? And then you look at a deck like Alakazam here. Alakazam is a single prize deck. Alakazam has obviously, these Pokemon that give up one prize, which is good. Giving up one prize is better. They give you more prizes. Obviously, in order to compensate for this, the multi-prize Pokemon are generally quite a bit stronger than the single prizes. That's why single prize decks in general are kind of bad. But Alakazam here is a deck where you need to get back Pokemon. In fact, you actually need to get back a lot of Pokemon, so it plays Lana Zade and Sacred Ash, which do recover more cards. Night Stretcher just gets back one card, but recovery is still very important in this deck. Then we look at Zoroark EX. And Zoroark EX is a deck here, kind of like with Lunatone, where you're discarding cards from your hand with your ability here, but this time it's any card, right? So then Night Stretcher allows you to get back cards and gives you more flexibility with what you discard. It's quite good there. Looking at the next deck, which is apparently Mega Starmie, presumably with Mega Frostlass here. This deck, again, you have multiple different types of basic energy. You have different Pokemon lines, kind of like the thing with Dragapult here. And so it's good. We also see 4 copies of Carmen, where you can discard cards early and get them back later with Night Stretcher. Generally, it does a lot of different things. But I kind of just went over those different things quickly, but let's break them down a little bit more here. So first of all, the obvious thing, which I guess is technically the only thing it does, it recovers cards. It gets cards, so you just go pile back into your deck. Again, looking at the standard format, we see, I'd say the best discarding card in standard would be Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball discards 2 cards from your hand, and then you search your deck for any Pokemon, reveal it and put it into your hand. So Ultra Ball will obviously discard cards. If you look at just a random deck playing it, again, we'll just look at this Zoroark deck again. You're running, let's see, how many? You're running 25 Pokemon and energies combined there. So if you discard any of those cards, so if you discard Night Stretcher, you lose the Night Stretcher, right? But if you discard the, Zoroark EX, then you kind of lose the Zoroark EX, but the Night Stretcher can get it back. And if you discard an Zoroark EX and an N-Star Manitan, then the Night Stretcher can get back the one of your choice. So it adds more versatility there, and that is really, really good, as opposed to with, if you have to commit early into what card you're discarding, that's going to be a bit worse. So Night Stretcher just gives you a lot more flexibility, and obviously with Ultra Ball, you want to try to discard cards that you don't really need. Also, this list only runs 1 Ultra Ball. It's not like the best example, but it's a fine example. And I also mentioned with trade, same idea there. but you want to try to discard cards you don't really need. For example, excess supporters or basic energy. You might even need basic energy in your discard for like NSPP up here or whatever. So that can be good, but let's be honest, there are times when you need to play Ultra Ball or a card like that, and it's good, right? Ultra Ball is also one of the best cards in the game, which we actually will be talking about a little more after the discarding aspect of it. But there are times when you have to get rid of cards you want to have in the later game, and that can be kind of sketchy. But Night Stretcher again really helps smooth that out and gives you a ton of safety. And honestly, I will say I've been playing a lot of Night Stretchers in almost every deck I'm playing. Currently, the deck I'm playing, which is I actually made a video on it. It didn't like do so well, but the deck is super fun. The video didn't do so well. The deck actually did quite well. It's a really cool deck. It's Dragapult with Frostlass. I know people hear Dragapult and they're like, we don't need more Dragapult, but the deck's actually really fun. But anyways, with any deck, if you're discarding stuff, Night Stretcher is just more flexibility, which is super, super good. And it's not really flexibility at the cost of that much, like really at all. It obviously takes up deck space playing Night Stretcher, but it's like recovery is generally kind of good as well. If, for example, your opponent knocks out your Fezandipti EX, then Night Stretcher can just be like a second one of those or whatever, right? So it'll do stuff even if you're not binning stuff you actually want with Ultra Ball or whatever. So Night Stretcher with recovery is obviously good there. And again, if you're playing a deck with a lot of one-ofs, for example, if we look at, let's see, where can I find this deck? We look at Absolbox. Where is it? Mega Absolbox here. We see that it's running a bunch of different Pokemon. It runs 2 copies of them for the most part. But for example, if you're playing against Dragapult, you need to use those Clefairy EX twice. You have to Night Stretcher, right? So Night Stretcher will, if you run, say, a bunch of one-of Pokemon, or again, like 2-ofs here, and you need multiple copies of them, Night Stretcher will be a second copy essentially of each one of them. It's not like entirely true, but it's mostly true. So Night Stretcher, again, really covering a lot of different things there in terms of, it adds redundancy for a lot of different cards. But on the other hand, as I said, I was going to talk about, we see like Ultra Ball. We also saw Nest Ball. Nest Ball has rotated. You have Buddy Buddy Poffin. Buddy Buddy Poffin's a little different, getting 2 cards there. And then there's also Pokepad. These cards, though, are some of the best cards in the game as well, right? Ultimately, I'd say the best cards in the game. The debate probably comes down to, obviously, you could say something like Dragapult EX, so that's different. And if you group it in with Drakeloak, I'd say it definitely is pushing that, but ultimately they are not the same card. They are different cards. And then you obviously have some very powerful support Pokemon, or like secondary Pokemon. You look at something like Fezandipti EX, you look at Badoo, you look at Latias EX, I guess, is very good. Realistically, not in that top spot. I guess you got Meowth EX as well. You got a bunch of powerful Pokemon, though they are not centerpieces of decks, but nor are the best trainers. The trainers aren't really centerpieces of decks, but you look at the items which search for Pokemon, and then your supporters, which either draw you cards, which the main one is List Determination. I actually made a video on that yesterday, and will definitely be making another video on supporters some point in the future, maybe soon. But this video, I will also actually be talking about supporters a little bit, or one supporter that's really caught my eye. But List Determination is the best regular draw supporter, and then there are also utility supporters like specifically Boss's Orders. There's Crispin as well. I don't think Crispin is really in the conversation for the best card in the game, but I imagine some people would say it is, but Boss Orders is definitely in that conversation. I guess looking at this list, there's also Unfair Stamp. Unfair Stamp is very good. Funnily enough, Unfair Stamp, because I said items are generally the cards that are going to be searching for your Pokemon, and then your supporters are generally going to be getting you a bunch of cards and being a little more versatile there. I would like Liz Determination being the perfect example, just drawing you a ton of cards and hopefully getting you what you need, versus the items getting you the exact specific piece you need, but it's just one card, right? So it's good for versatility, like with Night Stretcher there. And actually, with Night Stretcher actually begins to function very similarly to Ultra Ball, specifically the more discard you're playing. Now, I will say we have lost Squawk Ridley EX and Professor's Research, both of which are very good cards, and obviously, we lost them to rotation there, but they were cards that would fill up your discard pile pretty quickly early on. We just love Carmen. I will mention that. I think Carmen is mediocre. I actually thought Carmen was going to be like a super nice inclusion with Meowth EX, and funnily enough, I played very little Meowth EX. I don't know why. I've been playing a bunch of Pokemon and a ton of post-rotation. I was playing some pre-rotation, but I've been playing a lot more post-rotation, but shockingly, as I said, I played like almost no Meowth EX, but I've seen a lot of people play Carmen. I guess I've been like I was higher on it pre-rotation and like really hyping it up, and then people are playing it quite a bit. But regardless, I have not, so I don't have too much to say on that. But that is a that's a replacement to research and squawkability, but it's definitely worse, obviously. But with that, you're going to be filling up your discard pile, not filling up like fully, but getting a good chunk of pieces into your discard pile relatively early on, and then you can access those later on with Night Stretcher, and then the card Night Stretcher essentially becomes a search card from your discard pile. And well, searching your deck is going to be better because all your cards start in your deck. Being able to search your discard pile is nice, especially when you have, let's say, you have 4 Night Stretchers, 4 Ultra Balls. I play my in one of my decks, actually a good chunk of decks. I play 4 Ultra Balls, 4 Buddy Poffin, 4 Night Stretcher, and 4 Pokepad, I think is the card I didn't say there. And so you have 12 cards to search your deck for cards you need. Ultra Ball obviously being the most versatile there, but also having the biggest downside, and Buddy Poffin being the least versatile, having the biggest upside, and not discarding anything and getting 2 cards. So they do go immediately into play, which is probably going to be a bit worse, but it's not a huge downside there. Though it is a meaningful downside, I will admit that. But with those 12, that's pretty good. But then you have Night Searcher as well, acting as in the early game, it doesn't do too much. That is definitely this card's biggest weakness. It does essentially nothing early on, and then you might discard it, and then it's just doing nothing, and that just kind of sucks. But it is, as soon as you get really a little bit into the game, it becomes something really awesome, especially in a deck where, as I said, with something like something like Lunatone, then you're going to be discarding energies, or decks where you're manually retreating. And I found myself manually retreating like into Badu. Yeah, it's just some of the decks. Okay, let's be honest. A lot of people are playing Dragapult with Badu and stuff like that. But yeah, that is good. Turn 1 Badu is definitely good, and you want to manually retreat, and then you can have access to energies because you'll have one of your discard. You can get it back with Night Stretcher really at any point. The list I am running is run a bunch of different types of energies, so Night Stretcher definitely plays a little weirdly. But anyways, Night Stretcher is very powerful, and I think that's something that I've kind of always known that this card's very good, and kind of known it can act as a search card, on top of obviously being this recovery card. And recovery is something that you don't necessarily need in every deck, but like realistically, I think almost every deck that game should play at least 1 Night Stretcher. Realistically, I feel like 2 Night Stretchers as a starting point in almost every deck is probably fine, even if you aren't really discarding that much, because I mean, it's just a good card, right? But it's also a card that you can feed into. And as I said, I was going to talk about supporters some here. As I said, Liz Determination is definitely the best supporter card in the game, at least in terms of setup. There's Boss Order is also very good. But then you have the next best supporter. I don't know what that one is. I was looking at Safe Mix Code Breaking a little. I'm not a huge fan of that. There's Brock Scouting, which I've been playing as my second supporter of the choice, as well as Judge. Judge is a card that obviously disrupts your opponent's hand. As I said, recently I believe yesterday, I made a video talking about Iono, and of course I talked a bunch about Judge in that video as well. But Judge is like a decent card. It's just a pretty decent card. It's not an amazing card, and Lily's is definitely a card I'd much rather play a lot of the time, especially paired with Mega Frost EX, which is again the deck I've been playing with Dragapult. It's Frost Dragapult, and Judge can be kind of wacky there, but with Judge it is still pretty like solid. So you got stuff like that. You got Carmen, you have Team Rocket's Petrol, you have these decent supporters, but none of them feed. Well, okay, Carmen feeds the discard some, but then there was another supporter, because looking at all those supporters, there are I guess Life Minutes Code Breaking gets you, like, sees your entire deck and gets you anything you want from your entire deck, but it doesn't actually get you any cards into your hand, right? Rock Scouting sees your deck and gets you some cards, though it's not the most versatile. Same thing with something like Cyrano or Dawn or whatever. Then you also, I want to say not the most versatile. If it was on the level of an item, it's pretty decent, but it's not, it's not an item. It's a supporter. It's taking a bigger commitment there. And you look at something like Judge drawing 4, Carmen drawing 5, and then you look at the one Spirit Rotation, Research drew 7, and Iono drew 6, and Lily's draws 8 or 6. I mean, bad Lily's is still going to be better than all those other options for the most part. Obviously, they do some other things, but Lily's is really good, right? I will also mention Unfair Stamp. As I said, normally items are going to be playing this Pokemon search role. As I said, you have Ultra Ball, Butterfly Poffin, Pokepad, and also Night Stretcher kind of filling that role, getting a specific card of your choosing. I said Pokemon Search, and Night Stretcher does fill that role. It is Pokemon and Energy Search as well, which is really nice. I mean, if you played with Fighting Gong, which is super good, then you know how good that is. And anything like that, it just smooths things out so much. Even in decks where it's mediocre, like say Cynthia's, I'd say Fighting Gong is a bit more mediocre. It still is very good. Mediocre compared to, Mega Lucario, where all your Pokemon are fighting and you're like needing to churn through fighting energies there. But ultimately, Night Search is going to be doing both those things. Unfair Stamp is an item, but it plays like a supporter, which is honestly kind of jarring. Every time I play with or against Unfair Stamp, I get like, if someone Unfair Stamps and then supports, I'm like, oh yeah, you can do that. And it's good, but it's kind of weird because, as I said, it plays kind of like a supporter there, being almost the same as actually Team Rocket's Archer. Obviously not the Team Rocket's part of Team Rocket's Archer, but the I guess the other part of Team Rocket's Archer, other than the Team Rocket's part, would be the Archer part. So, anyways, that was a strange statement to say there, but it's very good. And so, in some ways, you could say that's the best supporter in the game. Obviously, it's kind of stupid because it's not a supporter, but in some ways, you have the if you're looking at a starting place for a deck and you're looking for your draw support package, the 5 cards in there being the 4 Lotus Determination and the Unfair Stamp, which Unfair Stamp is the best base spec in the game. It's not like you have to play it, though you really should be playing some Hand Disruption. So playing Judge actually smooths the game out, and I will quickly mention this here. I'm a little sidetracked now, but the card from Chaos Rising, Special Red Card, I believe is the translation, actually I think will lead to the game feeling a lot more fair, because Unfair Stamp is currently, I mean, it obviously will still be a 1-of post rotation, but currently it's this only form of like item hand disruption, really the only form of powerful hand disruption. So with Special Red Card, I think the game will actually feel a lot more fair with, up to 5 copies. Probably, I think in list, they're mostly running Unfair Stamp and Special Red Card, 1 copy of Special Red Card there. But you'll have 2 copies of this card that is, or there are 2 copies of this part of the game, which is pretty impactful, making it feel less random. It'll feel more frequent, so maybe that's not a good thing, but I do think it will feel more fair there. But regardless, looking at supporters, there was a supporter that I was looking through. Funnily enough, I was playing against someone. Also, another funny thing, I was actually playing with the deck I showed off, except I had printed it, it's like I printed some proxies, and apparently like did something wrong, and I was looking through the deck after, and I had 5 Buddy Poffins. Figured I'd share that. That was kind of awkward, but regardless, that was a thing that happened. But anyways, I was playing, and I heard someone say, this card is bad. And I was thinking, I was like, maybe, but this card can be good. And that card is Explorer's Guidance. Explorer's Guidance is a weird card. It's an ancient supporter. Looking here, it's essentially played in ancient decks, which mostly care about it being ancient supporter. We saw Explorer's Guidance as, I believe, Hapu. Yeah, Hapu's the same thing. Hapu saw some play, I guess in Control here. Actually, this is a really good connection because this card, what it does is you look at the top 6 cards of your deck, you put 2 into your hand, discard the others. It is ancient, as I said as well. One of the 2 ancient supporters, but now one of the 1 ancient supporters because the other one that was very good rotated. So if you're playing Ancient Box as well, then you're running this, I guess. Ancient Box still works too well post rotation though, but anyways, with Explorer's Guidance here, you do see 6 cards, right? This is, as I was saying, you saw 5 with Carmen, which is a good option, or with like Judge, you see 4. Here you see 6, and you don't even lose your hand either. Of course, you are losing 4 cards, which is a little unfortunate. That being said, usually it's okay. Maybe not. Obviously, in a game, you're not going to play all of your cards. That being said, you could theoretically hit multiple cards that are very important. Multiple as in, I mean, even like there are often times when you need to take something for right now, and then there are cards you really want for later, and you just can't take all the cards, right? And again, some of the cards you will lose. That being said, with Night Stretcher, you're going to have a lot of other cards in your deck that are Night Stretcher will be redundancy for. So you can just take a Night Stretcher and like another card, and then you have some nice dig into the deck with Explorer's Guidance. On top of that, you'll also be relatively safe and not really in a bad situation. I actually played this just a few games. Funnily enough, I don't think I really won those games, but it didn't really have to do with Explorer's Guidance. Explorer's Guidance was honestly feeling really nice. And Explorer's Guidance, again, it digs 6 cards into the deck, and it also lets you don't get all those 6 cards, but you get the 2 you need, and then the ones you put in the discard are also accessible using Night Stretcher, so it feeds into your discard pile for Night Stretcher. And again, there are other supporting cards like this. There's like Devine and Carmen. Those cards, though, put cards that are currently in your hand into your discard, and then you can put it back into your hand using Night Stretcher. So again, it gives you more like safety and redundancy, but it's not actually like getting you any new cards there. But Explorer's Guidance can do that, and this actually really reminds me of one of the most powerful, I guess, quote, combos in the Pokemon TCG, which we see in Expanded. So let's see if I can find the most recent Expanded tournament. Here we go in May 2025 on Limitless here. So, a little while ago. But we see 2 cards. These cards have both been considered for bans. They are like super good, specifically Battle Compressor. I haven't heard too much talk over Seeker being considered for bans, but VS Seeker is like one of the best cards in Expanded. It's so good. And this is put a supporter from discard into your hand. And getting a supporter from your discard pile into your hand is good, right? It's recovery. That being said, you're running a lot less supporters than you're running Pokemon. And so running versus Seeker, it does give you access to all these different things. And it's really good, right? This card is really good. However, it's mostly recovery until you add the card Battle Compressor. Search your deck for any 3 cards and discarding them, shuffling your deck after. Pairing this with Versus Seeker searches for any supporter. And in the late game, when you've discarded a lot of cards, then you see Versus Seeker being this search item, essentially being any supporter. And Night Stretcher does the same thing, being any Pokemon or energy. And yes, supporters are very impactful, and I like to talk about supporters being the most important cards in decks. That being said, having access to almost any Pokemon or energy, that's huge, right? Again, it doesn't get you special energies. I will mention that as well. Special energy recovery essentially never exists. I kind of wish it did, maybe. I don't know. I wish Pokemon did more with special energies. But with Battle Compressor plus Versus Seeker, I don't think Explorer's Guidance is as good as Battle Compressor. It's not, obviously. However, I think Night Stretcher is as good as Versus Seeker. They are different cards, but Night Stretcher is so amazing. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Also want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot. And I'd love to interact with you more as well. Shockingly, I get comments, but I don't get that many comments from YouTube members. But I love reading all your comments, especially from members. But I really hope everyone enjoyed the video. Make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps support me, and it's a free way to do that. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.